Hey guys, welcome back to DIY guitar making. I forgot to turn on my light. Hold on. This is important. I'm not really podcasting until I have this light on. I don't know why. I like it. It's a nice little background touch there. You know, highlighting the DIY guitar making sign there. Anyway, we're here to do Q&A. And just a couple housekeeping to get us started. I do have Radial Rosette Maker jigs ready to go here in the shop. If you guys want to buy them, I can ship them out this week. So just so you know, check that out, ericschaferguitars.com. This is a jig for making wood grain radial patterned rosettes and offset rosettes. Basically a way of stepping up your rosette making game, an easy way of doing it to, you know, increase the sort of aesthetic appeal of your instruments by leaps and bounds, let's say. We've made the Rosette Maker jigs a little more attractive too. I've started using a company called Artisan Engraving to laser engrave out the whole pattern on there. So instead of the old Radial Rosette Makers, I used a decal for the pattern that's laid out on the jig. Nothing wrong with the decal. It functions exactly the same, but it definitely looks a lot cooler with all of that pattern just engraved out onto a piece of high quality plywood. So anyway, that's all inside baseball stuff there. By the way, if you guys want like laser engraving done on any of your stuff, Artisan Engraving, and they're out here in Pennsylvania, a local company. Check them out. They're great for that stuff, so I would highly recommend them. Let's, well, a couple other things I want to talk about. Please, guys, stop posting to the old members forum. So a while back, as many of you do know, I moved the members forum to a Discord channel, and it functions way better on the Discord channel. There's way more activity. All the stuff you see in these Q&As, or most of it, is coming from that Discord channel. And then I also pull some questions from YouTube at the end as well. But hey, it's been working great. I love the engagement, the activity that actually goes on there, as opposed to the old forum that I had on my website. It was nice that it was native to the website, but it was so clunky to use. Very few people were using it. And now for some reason, people have started using it again. I think it's my fault. It's just that people don't know about the Discord. They don't know that it's moved. Okay, so that's what this is, a PSA for some of you guys who have still been using that. Every single time I see someone posting in the old forum, I just send them a basically canned message that directs them to the correct place. And really, I keep saying I'm going to delete that old forum, but I do all my sort of IT work myself, and it's a little bit scary to delete something off your website. So I'm kind of doing it slowly and cautiously because I don't want to permanently damage anything on the back end of my website. So anyway, just bear with me here, and please, you'll see the old form on the website, just don't use it. Otherwise you'll get that pre-canned message, okay? By the way, the members forum, for you guys who don't know what I'm talking about, is for students of the online guitar building school or previous students of my workshops. You guys become members in that forum. So that's how you get into it if you want to get into that forum. Okay, let's see what else. The workshop that I was going to do in late December, which was just stupid because it gets so close to Christmas that it's really silly thinking anyone would want to sign up for that. I mean, maybe somebody who doesn't celebrate Christmas, but still, it just didn't happen, not surprisingly. That workshop didn't fill, so I'm removing it, just so you guys know, pulling that off the schedule. So now there's no more available spots in any workshops in the winter. Winter is now officially closed, and if you want to get into a workshop, you can look forward to the spring. The entire spring schedule is out on the website. I haven't put a fall 2024 schedule out yet, but if you are interested in registering that far ahead, just reach out to me and we'll figure out, I can figure out what the schedule is sort of on the fly with you, because I'm actually working on that at the moment right now. So spring and fall is when I do my workshops. You want to get in one, that's what you have to look for. Okay, I don't have a commissioned build yet, which is a bummer because I'm getting ready to start the next thing. I just finished those parlor guitars. That was a big deal. And what I'd like to do is get a commissioned build. So if you reach out to me and you want to have a guitar built for you and you would enjoy seeing it basically the whole process being tracked on this channel, and you can follow along and comment and do all that great stuff and share it with your friends. And then at the end, that guitar that you see being built and that you're learning all these tips and techniques through the process of it being built, you then get that guitar shipped out to you. So if you would like a commissioned build from me, reach out, go to ericschaeferguitars.com. I'll put the real link on the video here, and you just pay a deposit and I get started. I start filming it, and it, you know, fills the channel up with wonderful content as well. So if I don't get a commissioned build this winter, I'll still do something, of course, but I'm not sure what that will be. I'll find something very creative to do. I've been batting around a couple ideas in my head. So we'll see. Okay, let's get to your Q&A. All right, so let's go to the members forum. Okay, so the first question I have here comes from AJ, and AJ writes, the last couple of guitars I've built after radiusing the top, I have ended up with a little corner gap between the guitar top and the fretboard tongue where it meets the neck joint to the body. I'd prefer it to be a nice, flat, clean joint here without the small gap. It's not that noticeable and a little glue fills it, but is there a way to radius to keep this area flatter? Leave the top hanging over the edge or side of the radius sanding board more perhaps? Let me see if I understand that last part. Okay, so he's saying that as a possibility. So he could leave the top hanging over the edge. Leave the top hanging over the edge. Oh, I think I understand. Like leave a little trim. I mean, are you not doing binding, I'm supposing, in that instance, if you're leaving a little excess trim hanging over the edge? So, yeah, I don't know, but that doesn't seem like a solution to me. Also, it seems like you're trading one sort of noticeable blemish for another. Or side of the radius sanding board. Okay, I don't understand the last part of the question, but that's okay. I understand the heart of your question. You are asking about that little gap. So in case you guys don't know what he's talking about, if you radius the top, here's a guitar. If you radius the top of a guitar fully, meaning you apply a radius to the braces and to the rim set all the way across, then if you don't do anything else, when you do your neck joint, you have an unavoidable little gap that you won't be able to get rid of up here, simply because, I mean, you should expect that because there is a radius, a sloping off there. So this is being glued down flat, but hey, the soundboard isn't totally flat. It's nearly flat because the radius is subtle, but it's not truly flat. So that is the problem that we're talking about. I'm going to give you several different ways of looking at this, actually. So first of all, a lot of instruction out there will instruct you to radius the rim set, but then actually apply a flat board to the upper bout area only. So in that way, what you have when you glue down your top is you have a radius across most of the guitar body, all of the lower bout and most of the waist, which then sort of transitions into a flat kerfing at the top, so that you get an easier glue surface for your fretboard tongue, okay? I don't like to do that. I can't even necessarily express why. I just don't like, I think it just has to do with gluing something. That transition between the flat area and the radius area is weird to me, and I don't like the fact that that I have to do that. Okay, well, I'll just leave it at that. I don't have to explain that part. So anyway, that's one way to go about it. Another, what I like to do is I fully radius the top surface. So I don't do any of that flattening in the upper bout. I treat it all the same. I drive the bus, as John Hall likes to say, in the radius dish all the way across. And then when I am at the gluing the neck to the body stage, I take a good, well set and sharp block plane, and I cut in with just a couple of strokes right in the upper bout area. I say cut in because if I just go in with a flat sanding block into that area to try and flatten it a little bit in preparation for the fretboard, the sanding block will actually follow the gentle radius. It'll ride on that hill, and it won't actually cut into it and create a flat plane. The block plane does a better job at that. So a couple swipes with this just kind of establishes a flat plane, and then I grab my sanding block. And here's the sanding block. This one is admittedly in rough shape. Probably need to, you know, pull the cork off and re-flatten this block right here. But anyway, the point is then I take a block of about this size. Once I've first cut in with this, I've established the flat plane with a block plane, then I can just do some 120 grit sanding in that area to flatten it out, avoiding extremes. This is very important here. It's very easy to get carried away and taking out straight edges and checking the flatness and trying to get it to be perfectly flat all the way out to this edge. I actually flatten it and I leave a tiny bit of curl at that front edge, which gives me a unnoticeable gap right at the fretboard tongue. A very slight gap, which is totally fine and acceptable, okay? It's really, that gap is not necessarily a functional problem. It's just if you notice it, it can be an aesthetic issue, right? It can bother you. So if it's noticeable, it's bad. If it's not noticeable, you can actually call it quits ahead of time and say, okay, this is good enough, this looks good. So that's what I do. Cut in with the block plane and then flatten a little bit. I should mention, just as a note to that I have really good structure underneath the fretboard, more so than would be in your typical Martin guitar set of plans. The fretboard graft, for example, covers the whole, essentially the whole footprint behind the transverse bar. And the point of that is, because I know I'm going to be removing some material there, the fretboard graft adds a lot of thickness to the upper bout soundboard, which is important when you're doing things like flattening that area. It's important when you're doing neck resets too, to know that you have a lot of meat under there. So I just want to mention that if you're going to do it that way, I would recommend increasing the size of your fretboard graft, the footprint of it, to cover more soundboard area. I always find that the Martin fretboard graft is kind of this really thin thing, and or thin's not the right word, narrow. It's not wide, and I don't see any reason why you shouldn't just cover that entire space behind the transverse bar with the fretboard graft. So there's that. I'm going to give you one more thing though, because actually, and I think this might appeal to you a lot, So this right here is a radius dish. It's like the inside of a big sphere coated in sandpaper. So the radius goes in all directions around this dish. And this is likely what you're using, and this is what most people use. But some people radius with, let's see if I have, here it is. I don't know if this is like an official term for this, but I call it a contour board to differentiate it from a radius dish. So the dish is radiused in all directions. A contour board, this is flat this way, but it has a radius only in this direction. Okay? And I know some people like to radius their tops and their backs with just a contour board like this. So they actually don't end up with a spherical radius. They end up with a radius only going, what's the word? In the transverse direction, right? Widthwise across the body. Longitudinally, it's actually flat. And so, in that way, you really don't have much of an issue, or maybe you don't have any issue, with getting that gap in the corner there. So honestly, if that bothers you a lot, this might be the best way to go. Okay. Think I've spent enough time on that one. Great question, though. It deserved that much time to be spent on it. Very good question. All right, let's go back to the members forum. Okay, Patrick. Patrick writes, on my next guitar, I plan on using solid linings. Are there any tricks on how to make them? I have a Fox bender, but they seem a little thick to bend that way. Should I just laminate them? So I have never done solid linings, but as far as I understand, I know that a lot of people do laminate their solid linings, but I also have heard of people bending them, bending the solid linings even when they're 5 millimeters thick. Of course, that is going to depend on the species. That your success in that is going to depend on what species you're using. I'm not sure what to recommend in that regard. Just bending something at 5 millimeters thick is a lot. And I haven't done it. A lot of people use basswood for solid linings, and so that might be the way to go, but I would look into that. I'm not sure. I've never bent basswood. But the simple answer to your question, the foolproof answer is yes, laminations. Even just doing 2 laminations, I think you would only need to do 2 because you can bend them at about, I don't know, 2.5 millimeters or 90 thousandths of an inch. Uh-oh, I'm doing conversions in my head now. That's never good. Okay, yeah, I'm going to say 2 laminations would be probably all you need, which isn't too hard to do. But if you want to give it a shot, bending solid linings, because I know people do this, I know they have success with it, I would encourage you to try it. And you know what? Maybe the people who bend at the thicker thicknesses, at 5 millimeters, perhaps what they're doing is they're bending not on a Fox bender, but on a pipe. And the thing with your linings is you don't have to bend them all the way like you do with the sides. Like, you don't have to bend them perfectly to the shape. You can just coax them along and get them close to the shape, and then when you glue them down, they of course will be pliable enough that they can just get pulled the rest of the way. So that's something to consider too. You know, if you wanted to give it a shot with the full width solid linings, which I would recommend trying, because hey, if you can do that, that's easier, right? It saves you a step. Yeah, I would recommend giving it a shot on a hot pipe or on a bending iron. And if that doesn't work, then laminate. Laminate, laminate, laminate. It's always a good thing to do. A lot of people laminate their sides. I don't know if you guys know that. Laminating your sides is kind of the new thing nowadays. I'm probably going to try it at some point. There's a lot of benefits to laminating your sides. But that's a separate thing. Let's let's keep moving here. Let's see what else we got. We got a question from Alalush. Alalush writes, what is the lowest radius that can be used for an acoustic guitar? I once played an old LG2 which had a 14-inch or even 12-inch radius, which was, for me personally, extremely comfortable to play. So I will say there's no rule to this. You could use a, I know a Fender, this is electric guitars, of course. Fender radius is 7.25 is the lowest radius I've heard of on a guitar, period. Not just an acoustic guitar. But if that's where your comfort is, I don't see why you couldn't do that on an acoustic guitar. Now, I will say it's pretty unheard of on an acoustic guitar. The lowest that I am familiar with is a 12-inch, and a lot of people use a 12-inch. I use a 12-inch sometimes, but more often I use a 20-inch, which is very flat. So I would say a 12-inch. I could be wrong about that. Maybe, I know they sell like 10-inch blocks. There might be some 10-inch radius acoustics. Maybe I'll look this up real quick instead of speculating about it. Although speculating is fun. It's a lot of fun. Oh, great. Okay, I got a pretty straightforward answer here. Common acoustic guitar fretboard radii are 10 inches, 12 inches, 16, and 20. So I was right, the 10 is considered in acoustic guitar radii. And then I think going below that would only be really an electric guitar thing. So, yep, Alalush, I would try a 10. You might like a 10-inch radius on your fretboards. Give that a shot. Okay, so moving ahead here, Patrick writes, here's just a nice little PSA from Patrick. FYI, Lowe's has Bosch Colt trim routers on sale for $79 until February 1st. That is great. So the Bosch Colt trim routers, for you guys who aren't aware of this, that is a much used router in our little world of lutherie, particularly because the binding tower jigs that Stu Mack sells and LMI, rest in peace, used to sell, they all use, they're designed around this particular Bosch Colt trim router. So that's a good thing, because in our world, a lot of upstart luthiers are buying these. $79, great. Thank you, Patrick, for shouting that out. Oh, and he's got another PSA here, I guess. Stu Mack just put a bunch of back and side sets for sale from The Tree. Way, way, way out of my price range. $8,500. Dang, that is an expensive set right there. $8,500 for a set of mahogany. So The Tree, for you guys who don't know the myth of the tree, the legend of the tree, there is a single tree, yes, one tree, that all this lore is built around. It's a giant mahogany tree that, if I'm understanding the story correctly, at some point back in the day, they logged this tree and it fell down into a ravine and was unrescuable. Basically, it was a lost cause at the time. Now with modern technology, they have sort of rediscovered this tree that fell down there during the old logging days and dredged it up, pulled it up, and it is a beautiful, I mean, the wood that comes from it has the most amazing figure on it, but I think that there's been a lot of, I do want to say, marketing effort to promote that wood as basically the best quality tone wood in the world, and so it fetches a very high price. Obviously, because of its rareness, it's literally one tree, but then also, I think there's the assumption that it's going to give your guitar, imbue your guitar with the most magical tonal qualities. And I think that gets a little bit overplayed, let's say. But it's still a very fun story. It's beautiful wood. You know, one thing that, this is where my sort of conspiracy mind goes a little bit. I see so many sets sold for the tree. I start to think this can't be, how is this one tree still producing wood at this point? Now, I'm not in the business of hardwood, you know, extraction and cutting up the wood and the material and breaking it down into parts for hardwood flooring people and furniture people and luthiers and all that. And so I don't have a really solid understanding of really how many sets of quality material you can actually get off of one giant tree. But it does seem like there's more of the tree out there than is reasonably possible. I'm not saying that I think there's something fishy going on there, because I don't know. I truly don't know. But it blows my mind how many people have built guitars from the tree. It's one tree we're talking about. A big tree, but it's one tree. So anyway, that's just a little fun there. I'm glad he brought up the tree, because it's fun to talk about. It's a cool story. Larry Kuhn writes, Patrick, I saw that. Interesting story. My brother has been building classical guitars and some steel strings since the 1970s. He was a textbook author, and that took him around the country when a new edition of the textbook came out. He knew where all the good wood suppliers were in every city and would always check out their supply. On one trip, they told him, I got this... I'm sorry, I'm reading too fast. On one trip, they told him, I got this weird quilted mahogany. Are you interested? He had two pieces, each about 36 inch by 12 inch by 3 inch. And my brother bought one of them for cheap. It was from the tree, and he still has it untouched. Of course, had he known what would happen over the next 40 years, I'm sure he would have snatched up both pieces. That's great. Yeah. Good for him. That is fantastic. Such valuable wood. It's amazing what a story can really do for the perceived value of something. An amazing story, though, and you know the rareness of it has its own value in a certain way. I mean, it is really cool to have something built from the tree. But man, $8,500. That's hard to stomach. Okay. All right. Let's go to YouTube. I'm going to answer some of your questions on YouTube. We'll fly through those, and then I'll sign off, and we'll go about our business. All right, guys. Let's see what we got. Hopping over to YouTube. Oh, and just one more thing before we jump over to YouTube. I wanted to share what Patrick shared here, which is some progress pictures of his guitar, because his guitar is like, it's really coming out to be something beautiful. I really have enjoyed seeing this. He writes, here's an idea of what it will look like with finish, and he sprayed it with alcohol, of course, to mimic the sort of mellowing out of the color palette on it that you get with finish. And he recently put this vine inlay on there, which I think, Patrick, you were wondering if the inlay was going to be too much. I do not think this was too much. I think that really adds something, and not in an over-embellished way. It's a beautiful inlay. If you could remind us in the members forum where you got that from, I'd like to share that. What source, what supplier you ordered that inlay from, because that's a really cool inlay. I love all the rosette work and the purfling work you did with the mother of pearl. I know that takes time to do, and it looks like the execution was pretty, at least in the picture, it looks pretty flawless. And then it looks like right now he's at the process of gluing on the bridge. You've been getting a lot done, Patrick, moving very quickly. And I like that he's using the vacuum method to glue on the bridge. So I'll throw those pictures up in here too, so you guys can see this beautiful guitar. Very cool. All right, let's jump over to YouTube. Dennis Seiler writes, and he's commenting on a video that I did on voicing. He writes, thanks for posting this. Roger Simonov talks about deflection in his book as well. He is pretty left-brained, I would say, but he actually uses a dial caliper to measure top deflection against a set weight. I never went that route, but it bears mentioning. Yeah, so the video that I did was basically I talked about the difference between right brain methods of lutherie and left brain methods. And I was kind of saying that I do more of the intuitive right-brained stuff, mostly just because it's quicker and it's easier and all that. But I've heard of this before. Yeah, using a weight to actually measure the deflection that you're getting from the top is a pretty simple left-brain way of adding left brain methods to your lutherie without going full, you know, spectroscopy kind of crazy stuff. I think you can do that method. Yeah, so a simple deflection test on your top, measure the actual deflection after you've voiced the braces completely. Very good. Okay, Dar Pope writes a question. What is the maximum depth you can countersink these tuners? I wouldn't like to have the tuners loose in the headstock. Thank you for your learned reply. I don't know why you would be worried. So there's no issue with them becoming loose in the headstock from countersinking. In this case, this video I was talking about countersinking Steinberger tuners. But even if you were countersinking more conventional tuners, countersinking the washer down into the head plate, there's really no issue unless you went all the way through the headstock. It's not going to get loose in there. We're talking about the sort of head of the Steinberger tuners is about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more than that. And you can go that full 1/8 of an inch. You can countersink the head of that tuner, the top portion of it, all the way down, so it's literally below flush. And that's not going to loosen anything up. So if I'm getting your question wrong, let me know, but yeah, there's no issue there. Michael Kaz NYC writes, once you go stainless steel, it's over. They are so amazing. No more little dings and dents on the fret wire. It's worth it. My Sir SSS is beastly. Okay. I like that. Beastly. Very cool. Yeah, stainless steel is great. I'm more of an Evo Gold guy. I think you kind of get the same thing from both of those materials. The point being simply that it's way better than the main staple, which is nickel silver. Either way is way better. Stainless steel is definitely hard and durable. You're definitely not going to get dings in that. Okay, Jonah Guitar Guy has a couple of comments here. Just saw a video by Kevin Ledoux. He's trying an aluminum bridge plate in a guitar he's building. Okay, great. So I had mentioned that I wasn't, someone had asked about using, I think it was copper, and I don't know if it was aluminum or a different metal as a bridge plate. And I had kind of responded, kicking it out to you guys, wondering if you guys were aware of people using metals for bridge plates like that. So that's good to hear, or interesting to hear an example of that, because I didn't know. He also writes, for me, I usually have about 3 builds going on at a time. Okay, this is because I was asking what you guys do as far as your process. Do you build 1 guitar at a time, 2 guitars at a time, or do you go nuts and build, 20 guitars at a time? And which not many people do, I should say. Most people are doing 1 or 2 guitars at a time. But he usually has 3, so good on you. He writes, but they are not typically the same guitar. Right now I have 2 000 12 fret acoustics in process. I just finished a solid body electric LPJ. I have 3 or 4 solid bodies, either rough or somewhat further up the food chain, but all that goes to the back burner when I have repairs in the shop. Yeah, that's true. Just happens to be right now 2 6-string acoustics in for neck resets, a Strat, and a bass. 6 in for setup work, and a double bass for string height adjustment and fingerboard shave. Wow, you are busy. Good on you, Jonah Guitar Guy. That's good stuff. It's good to be busy. Really it is. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it when you are busy, but then when you're not busy, you're like, damn, I wish I was busy again. Okay. Let's see. Alrighty. I think that's good. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for contributing with your comments and all that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now. If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.